everybody, it's Romania Black, and I know I've been dedicated to wearing black to honor the fallen throughout this series, especially after episodes 24 and 25, and I stand by that, but I felt like this sweater, not only was it good because I'm recording this like on Halloween Eve, but also because, ghosts seem fitting because we just lost Daddy Yagami. I didn't mean any disrespect. We don't mean disrespect for the dead, but R.I.P. Daddy Soichiro Yagami, you will sorely be missed, along with your sense of justice. But at least he got to die in peace, thinking that his son wasn't Kira. Meanwhile, Light, man, I just got done watching the English dub because that's my tradition, is to watch the English dub before starting with his reactions for the next episode. Brad Swain does an amazing job in episode 29 in the English dub. You should really go listen to it. It's really good. He does an amazing job, but especially in the latter part of the episode where he's trying to convince his father to kill Mello, or Mihail Kiel, trying to convince his father to kill Mello, and screaming at his father just to kill him, get it over with, or in his head, internally screaming. And then at the very end, Brad does an amazing job at the very end of the English dub for episode 29 of conveying just how much Light is acting like he is sad his father's dying. Like, Miyano Mamoru does an amazing job as Light, and I really love Miyano's performance. I think at this point I'm equal with Brad Swain and Miyano Mamoru, which is rare to have both a sub and dub voice that you both root for. Miyano pulls off the sinister smoothness of Light very well, but that whole act, like Brad Swain in the end of the episode of the English dub, where he's like being like, no, I can do this. You can just, he's like, does it make sense for me to tell him it's not too late? Well, of course it does, because I'm supposed to be panicking. And so he's acting, and the way in his head, his monologue is very calm. And then when he talks to his father, he is over dramatic. It's an act. And I hate him for it. Because I'm like, you lost your father and you were more concerned about being Kira than you were being a son. But you know what? We now have the situation where I do love Sido's English dub voice too. It's very nasally and very much like this. And it's kind of hilarious. I'm like, what? But I really like Sido in the English dub. It's great. But he has the original notebook back. The notebook that started this whole jamboree. He's ran off with it. Presumably to go back to the Shinigami world. So that one's gone. So really all that we're left with, Ryuk has his notebook still. Light has the notebook that was Misa's. Light has that one. And then we have the third notebook that was Rim's that now they have back from the police. So there. So there's still 3 death notes circulating. 2 specifically with the humans and 1 attached to Ryuk. So that's terrifying. Great. And we actually have 7 episodes. We have 8 episodes left now. Episode 30. We have up to episode 37. So we have 8 episodes left, which is a lot. A lot can happen in 8 episodes. A lot happened in these last 2, like so much. So I do have some comments to talk about before we start episode 30, but we're entering the last 2 months of Death Note. And then, of course, there's going to be the musical and the live-action movie and lots of other things that I have planned to do with Death Note. So we've still got a bit on our journey to go. But, Death Note, man. So let's talk about episode 27, 28, and 29 comments that I've got on here. Mainly 27 and 28. Al Sora talked about, did L know that Mello or Nier would go after Light once he died? I think that's a really good question. I obviously don't want to know the answer if it pops up. I want to keep away from spoilers. But that is a good question. Did L anticipate in episode 25 when he was going to die, did he anticipate Mello and Nier going after him? I want to say that he probably did because he sent the transmission, right? He sent the transmission back to Whammy House. So there's a part of me that's like, yeah, I feel like L was aware that Nier and Mello were going to go back there, but he didn't appoint a successor. So that leads me to believe that maybe he did want them to work together. He didn't know, he maybe knew that both Mello and Nier alone couldn't get the job done, but maybe they'd work together. And then, of course, Mello had to be like, no, and, storm out. But what can we do? Also, EQ talked about how in episode 27, the episode is called Abduction, which ties with Seiyu being abducted by Mello, but also could tie to a muscle abduction, which is where you pull a muscle, right? Meaning that maybe Light messed up or realized that killing L was maybe not the best idea, because now he's charged with 2 individuals that are equally as dangerous, if not more. And I want to talk about why for some of the comments here. Caitlin V talks about how Near may not realize how dangerous he is for Light because he doesn't care. He's very emotionally detached. The whole phrase, to catch a monster, you have to be a monster. Mello and Near are monsters in their own right. Mello, because he doesn't care who he kills to get the job done, very similar to Light. But also Near because he just doesn't care about anybody. He just wants to solve a puzzle. He treats it all as a very objective, emotionless thing and doesn't get attached to anyone or anything. So that's dangerous because that was L's whole deal. He was compassionate. And that ended up getting him killed. So now Light's dealing with two individuals that don't really have that compassion, or that compassion is not directed towards them. So it's very dangerous. But yeah, Near did not even seem disturbed by the fact that the SPK members died. He was just like, that was a calculated thing that I predicted was going to happen. And it's like, oh, crud, you don't care. You're just like, nope, saw that coming. So yeah, because I mean, L was sad when Ukita died. Like, he was physically shaking. He was so mad that Ukita had died when Misa killed him, but he wanted to make sure that Aizawa and the others didn't go after him. He's like, let's be calm and cool and think about this, which I wonder if Near or Mello would have done the same. So yeah, and then we have Alexander Q has the comment that Light may have gotten a little complacent over the last 5 to 6 years. I definitely agree with that. I think that Light, without L being there to give him any challenge, Light has just been like living the easy life, just doing whatever he wants to as Kira and stringing the police along, and nobody's really challenged him. What he doesn't know is that Near has been working behind the scenes all this time to be gathering up information in his own materials to track him down, or to track Kira down. And so that's rather interesting. And so he's kind of blindsided by Near and Mello in these episodes. But also I thought it was interesting that Alexander Q pointed out that Matsuda is kind of a representation of the easily swayed masses. Matsuda's been like that the entire series. They've been a character that has easily been swayed or manipulated by things that they've heard. And so Matsuda's sense of justice is kind of always sort of like teetered along the line towards Kira, which is fascinating to me. Kind of is interesting that he's connected with Misa so much. But yeah, it would make sense why Matsuda would easily be like on board with Kira's brand of justice. He's told like that in the past. And so I find that rather interesting. And Alexander also points out that over the last 5 to 6 years, the task force has worked directly with Light. So of course they've built this trust with him and this camaraderie that Light not only takes advantage of, but is very much uses to manipulate them. So yeah, and then you have Near come in and he's like, I don't trust or care for you, so that's not gonna work on me. So, you have that situation, right? Ian Prizer talks about how Mello and Near, they are not compassionate like L was, and we've talked about that a little bit earlier. Near, I like the idea of him as much more of an observer. Near wants to sit back and watch things play out to an extent, and then take advantage of things when he can. It's curious that both Mello and Near, they kind of take not only aspects of L, but aspects of Light as well, because Light sometimes functions as an observer. He lets things kind of happen and he backs away and sees what's going to go on with it and then uses that to his advantage. Near's doing that exact same thing. And so he's not driven by the thrill of the hunt like L. He's not Sherlock, damn it. L was Sherlock. He was the thrill of the hunt and finding Moriarty and everything, and it got him killed. Falling in love with Moriarty got him killed. And so Near doesn't seem to have that problem. So it also makes him and Mello much more dangerous because they don't have that attachment. They can sit back and watch, and they're not driven by the chase like L was. And so that's a little bit concerning for Light. And then finally, also from Alexander Q, Mello aligning with the Mafia. I hadn't thought of it this way, but that's also kind of an L move in that L was not afraid to use criminals to get jobs done. Like, he had Weedy and Iber working for him, but he also used like Lindell Taylor in the very second episode to imitate him, and he knew it was going to end up getting him killed, but he was willing to use him because he was a criminal. And so Mello associating with the Mafia, it's like, yeah, Mello does that because he's like, well, if these Mafia guys die, they're criminals, what does it matter? So it's interesting, right? It's a very warped and kind of extreme version of L's boldness. That's kind of what Mello and Near are. They are extreme versions of aspect of L, where you have L's boldness to the extreme, and that's Mello. And then you have L's like his sense of duty and sense of justice to the extreme with Near, where he's just not even compassionate at all. It's very black and white objectiveness. So yeah. But yeah, Daddy Yagami's died. I fully expect, if you told me Light was going to move into the position of chief of police like within the next 5 years of the story, I wouldn't be surprised. Are we going to do another time skip before the end of the series? We very well could. I don't think we will, but we might do some sort of time skip to show after Chief Yagami's death. But if you told me that Light was going to step up and become like a deputy of the police department or something because of how integral he's been to the Kira case, I wouldn't be surprised. It just makes me want to retch a little bit. But yeah, So I don't know what to do about that. Yeah, I don't know what to do with that information and what we're going to do with Light. At this point, we've summed up a lot of things in like 2-episode chunks of arcs. And so I don't know exactly where we're going to from here with the story, but we have 8 episodes left and a lot can happen in 8 episodes. So I'm excited to see what we get. So let's find out, shall we? So we're not going to waste any more time. We are going to start episode 30 of Death Note, and we are going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Y'all expect me to wait? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to be able to be honest, because dang, I did really good. I've waited and done week to week episodes, the last several, and then now I'm like, nope. You can't end it there with 7 episodes left and tell me. Here's the thing. I don't think that Light is going to kill Near in the next episode. I don't. Because he didn't kill Mello, so why are we going to make Near? The question is, how is Near getting out? Will Mello help him? I don't know. Will Mello help him? How is he escaping without being seen? And is that even possible? I mean, I guess the easiest thing to do would be to give them all masks and then say, okay, let's run out or escape and without a mask on. That way we're not being seen. But there's more at foot here. This episode actually had quite a lot going on. A lot going on. There was a lot of things I wanted to break down. Like, as we were watching the episode, I was like, oh, I want to talk about that. I want to talk about that. Because it's all breaking down, and we're getting into down into the nitty gritty of the philosophical conversations about this series. Fitting, we're in the final act, right? This seems like, it's weird. This doesn't seem like the final act, though. You think that we had this confrontation with Mello and what was kind of the final act with him, and Mello escaped and Daddy Yagami died. And now we have a confrontation with Near. Is Near going to die? But I don't think so, because the OP makes it seem like Near is the final boss, right? So I think Near's going to get out. What's going to be hard is I don't think I'll watch it tonight. I think I'm not going to pull an episode 25, 26 where I watch them back to back. No. But I may not wait a week. I may wait a couple days and go watch episode 31 because so that does beg the question, what do we do now? So there's a lot going on in this episode, and I want to break it down. It's funny, we were just talking about Matsuda when he is like a representation of the masses, and then Demigawa, it's literally demagogue. It's literally like he's like the Alex Jones of Death Note. Right? He's basically the US we have this guy called Alex Jones who's pretty much ridiculous, and that's what this guy is, Demigawa. I was like, he has that like personality that kind of reminds me of him. I'm like, okay. But okay, I want to talk about Mello and Near and Light, and Aizawa, I think Light is going to kill Ida. And by the end of this, it's going to be Light and Matsuda, the only one that believes in him. And he's going to keep Matsuda and Misa on either side of him. His like the person that's obsessed with him, in love with him, that he uses, and then the sheepish masses that follows along at his whim that he uses. And then Ryuk's in the back eating apples, like, although Matsuda did steal Ryuk's apples, so he may not be on board with keeping Matsuda around. But I think Light's gonna kill Ida and Aizawa. I think he's gonna kill him. He was willing. He was thinking about killing his dad and his sister at one point. He will kill Ida and Aizawa like it's no tomorrow. I am fully convinced. But I want to talk about each of these characters. I think that there's at the heart of this, I guess we'll put a little green heart, because I don't want to put red, because even though red is light's color, yeah, let's do that. I was like, I don't want to put a red heart because that indicates love, but red is light's color, so let's just do that. But so at the heart of this matter really is Kira and the entire discussion about Kira, right? And what Kira represents. They use the word justice a lot in this episode, which of course it's like right in the middle of the light thing, which you all see it says Kira. It's fine. And just know that in the center of the light is Kira. How about that? I wasn't even intending for it. But yeah, it's funny they throw around the word justice a lot in this episode because it's the way of passing down judgment upon others, correct? And I want to talk about a lot of these characters and kind of like the weird habits that they have. Mello and Near. So Near with his toys, right? Near and his toys. Okay, I'm gonna put Near over here. All right. Yeah, so here's the thing about Near. And so he has an obsession. He has an obsession with toys. And that's kind of one of the reasons Mello doesn't like him, is because you treat us all like we're tools and toys to help solve your puzzles. Like we're just stuff for you to play with. The funny thing is, like I said in the reaction, there are aspects of Mello and Near that are very similar to Elle, but there's also aspects that are very similar to Light as Kira, right? And Kira is not afraid to use anybody. Light as Kira uses any and all people, does not care as long as he gets his way. And Near's pretty similar to that. Mello is like the extreme version of Elle and his compassion. Like it's not really even compassion, it's just emotion, right? What's fascinating about Near is this obsession with toys. None of the other SPK members question it. They're just like, hello, sir, in your Mario castle, playing with your spaceships and aliens. How are you, sir? Someone said in the comments that they thought Near was like 18. It's so weird because I'm like, do 18-year-olds play with toys like that? It's kind of his quirkiness, right? It's odd. Like he acts like a child. That's a good distinction. I want to act that he has an act of a child. Much like Kira and Light, I think part of it is an act. It's meant to create a persona for himself, to make him seem a certain way. Because Near, on the surface, seems rather harmless. He's like, oh, he's a smart kid, right? He twirls his hair and he plays with his toys. Seems perfectly harmless. But no, Near is dangerous because Near is smart and doesn't care and does not form attachments with people. And Mello kind of gets upset about that because he's like, you don't care about anybody. You just use people and discard them. You know, kind of similar to Light in a sense, right? But we'll talk about this. Near, I think it's time you told us about your thoughts about the case. And so he says the current Kira is foolish and his exchange with the Japanese task force is far too convenient. So yeah, Near's like, this guy's gotten way too lax. He's very, very sure of himself and he's far, far too loose with his information. Which, granted, that is true. Light has had everything go his way for the most part this entire series. Elle was really the person that gave him the most struggle and called him to contention. So Light has gotten used and complacent these last 5 to 6 years of everything just going his way and not having to worry about things. And as we saw with Mello in the US, in that episode, Light was not in control of the situation. So it's possible he doesn't. I want to point out that he brings up these two toys, right? One toy says police on it, and it's like a little astronaut, but it says police. And the other one is a Grim Reaper, a Shinigami, if you will. So he says probably conspiring with the Japanese task force. So Near, funny enough, he has the toys of the police and then the Shinigami. It's like he's representing what his thoughts are through the toys. So he's like, I think that the police and Kira are working together and might have something. It's funny that he's holding the Grim Reaper because that's the symbol of Kira. He's like a god of death, like a Shinigami. And so he's like conspiring. He's like, well, if that's the case, then Kira is the new Elle. So he's figured it out. He knows that Kira is the quote unquote new Elle. or light. He knows it. He's figured it out. And when he opens up the thing with the policeman, it's the skull head. It reminds me a little bit of Doctor Who in the library. Reminds me a little bit of that. And he says, well, it can't be. Are you serious, Near? And so there's 3 people working. There is the one guy, Giovanni, and the girl. They're the 3 that are left with the SPK. They have all these resources. I'm assuming the government's still funding them until the end of this episode. He says, I say that I'm serious. It's 7% sure. So he says he's 7% sure, which is more than Elle would let on back at the early part of the series. But this is the very big distinction between Elle and Near, which I really like. I like they make this distinct. He says, Commander Rester, we have to make assumptions during investigations. So we have these 3. We have Giovanni. I'm going to put them here. We have Giovanni, we have Rester, and we have the 3rd girl. And they are all the remaining SPK, whose names and identities are not public knowledge, which is why Misa, and I'll put tie Misa here, that Misa is going, or set, to kill with her eyes. Okay, along with Near, should they come out, right? So he says, we have to make assumptions during investigations, and says that if we're wrong, we can just say we're sorry. So that part is a very distinct difference from Elle. He says that we can make assumptions and roll with them. And if we are wrong, then all we do is say we're sorry. Yeah. That's very different from Elle. Highly different from Elle. Elle was all about like, no, we need concrete evidence. We cannot prove and have justice until we can have proof and prove it. He's like, until we do things the tried and true method and get absolute certainty, we can't make assumptions and we can't take action until we know that it's the right course. Near does not believe that. No. And there's been several people in the comments. I think there was one commenter I mentioned at the beginning of the reaction that was one of them saying that a lot of people compare Near and Elle because they kind of have the same eyes and they have the same kind of quirkiness aura about them, but they're very, very different characters. And this episode really highlights how different they are. Near, here's the thing about Near and Mello, we don't know so much about Mello, and I'm gonna put Mello right here. Mello's whole thing that he has said is that he wants to be number 1. He wants to be number 1 and he wants to beat Near. Wants to beat Near to catch Kira. We know that. Now, is avenging Elle part of Mello's plan? I think so. I think that episode 27, highlighted just how that Mello might have been close to Near, or Mello might have been close to Elle and really respected him. And so when he died, he was like, well, how can this be? And so him catching Kira is to avenge Elle. I think that's more tied with Mello, and it fits Mello's personality where he's super emotional and maybe like, Elle was compassionate and Mello's just like exuding, emotion. So maybe there's a revenge aspect with Mello, but we don't know for sure. So I'm not going to put it on the board. However, Near's not doing this for justice. No, Near is not trying to have justice. That's not his goal. His goal is simply to catch Kira and get the Death Note. That's it. That's it. There's no justice involved in this. Now, to our knowledge, if you tell me later on that Near admits that this is part of like avenging Elle or achieving like justice for the world, but that doesn't seem to be Near's plan. No, this is just a game. Near's just like, my goal is to solve the puzzle, figure out who Kira is, and get the notebook, and then we're done. That's it. That's his sole purpose. He is not concerned with justice or changing world ideologies or changing the way the masses think about good versus evil. Near doesn't care. He's not attached to people. So that doesn't matter to him. It's all just a game. So it's kind of different, whereas Kira and Elle, here's the thing. You had with Light versus Elle, you had this idea of what is justice and who decides to pass it and what that is. So with Elle and Light, they both were characters that were trying to enact the justice they believed in the world. Now, in Light's case, it's a little bit more complicated than that, but that's all Elle wanted. Elle wanted to just serve justice and do the right thing. And the ways that he did it could be questionable, but that was his overall goal. It was just to do what he thought was right by justice. Nier does not care. Justice, whatever. What people think, whatever. Worldviews, who cares? I just need to catch Kira and get that death note. Don't care about anything else. And that's kind of what makes him dangerous, because I feel like Nier doesn't care if he kills people. I mean, he wants to avoid it. He's been trying so far to avoid killing people. He doesn't want bloodshed. He seems to kind of avoid that, whereas Mello doesn't care who he kills. But neither of them really are out to enact justice like Elle was, which is kind of chaotic. And I feel like it makes them on a different level than Light. Not necessarily above Light or below him, but like Light's over in Dimension A and Mello and Nier are over in Dimension C. Like they're on the same level, but just on different fields. They're playing different board games. Light's over here playing checkers and Nier's playing chess. So it's interesting, but that is a very big distinction between Elle and him. And I think that's very good to note, especially when people have been comparing the two. So, okay, we talk about this. There have been fewer crimes in Japan lately. I want to talk about Kira and this culture of fear, right? And this culture of fear. Because, yeah, that's essentially what this is, right? They say there's been fewer crimes, and they show the masses like kind of like the ED. My dad told me if you do something bad, your name is posted on the internet, and Kira will kill you. And so we see the police trying to get their names, and people don't want to give up their name. They're like, we can't file a report. And they're like, anything but my name. And so it's almost like, and we see people writing Kira on the steps like it's a wonder, like one of the 7 wonders. But yeah, so it's almost like people are afraid to have an identity. They're afraid to have an identity and share it because they believe that they could die from it, which is terrifying and kind of, just dictatorships work, it kind of is. It's like, is Kira kind of, it functions like a dictatorship. Sort of, yeah. In a sense, because it's saying, well, if you don't do what I tell you to and do what I think is right, then I'll kill you. And it's like, okay, but it's weird. There's this culture of fear that's been established, and Light doesn't do anything to try as Kira and mold it or try to make it distinct or anything like that. Because you're like, okay, well, Light, if you believed that only the criminals that really did the worst of the worst that deserve to die, that's your way of enacting justice, wouldn't you? I mean, he doesn't try to make that known to the public. He doesn't be like, these are the crimes that you should not commit. He just makes this culture of fear, like, well, you'll just not do anything that's out of line, right? And like the girl saying she's going to post their names on the internet. And then people are writing down, please, Kira, kill these people. It's kind of odd because it's like, it's sort of it's funny because you have like in Christianity, the idea of Christianity is saving people, like helping people to reform and become better and not commit evil deeds and to become a better person. And the idea is to save someone. But with Kira, it's no, kill this person. And it's like, whoa. It's like, that's the total opposite, right? So it's kind of interesting that as the Light, his role as, quote unquote, God of this new world is to pass judgment. And depending on your religion, a lot of religions focus on people becoming better and becoming saved and gaining salvation, not destruction. So it's very interesting, right? And this episode goes really into detail about it. And so says, and I like that we have like, okay, amidst all of these imagery, all the imagery of the doom and gloom surrounding like outside in Japan right now, there's people like writing on the walls and graffiti for Kira to kill people and writing their names, things like that. we instantly cut to the Yagami household. The Yagami household, and it's framed in this white light. Not unlike Elle and the Whammy house and those scenes, and we'll have the mosaic scene later, but not unlike that, right? Very similar, where it's this beautiful white light. But here's the thing. We cut to the Yagami household, and it's empty. We cut to the Yagami household, and it's empty. Now, this episode is going to present a lot of ideas about Kira, but there is no mistaking that the imagery, that the idea here that Light has become so obsessed with becoming this god of the new world, becoming Kira, enacting justice, that he has completely forgotten the very fundamentals of his own family that he's supposed to love and be compassionate with. Because, you know, a few episodes ago, we were all sitting around the couch having a good time, and now there's no one there. This pristine house is empty, and we cut to like the sink with the figurines and everything, the lunch on the table that no one's getting. And is it lunch or is it an urn? That's the question. And then Miss Yagami is all by herself at the table. There's no one there. The light is shining on her, but Miss Yagami, she is alone. And I get really pissed off at that, because it's like Light. It's like, yeah, you've strayed so far down this path, this God complex, that you have forgotten the very foundation of humanity, which is your connection with other people. And it's like Light has forgone all of those connections. It's like for Light, there's like with his mom, that image alone of her alone at the dinner table with no one there shows that he's not connected to her at all. He's foregone. He's sacrificed that. Nope. Don't need mom. Sister, she's off in a home somewhere from the trauma that he caused her. Don't need that. Misa, we'll talk about Misa. And then his comrades. With the exception of Matsuda. We'll talk about Matsuda. With the exception of him, I think he's going to kill Ide and Aizawa. I think he's going to kill him because he thinks that they're on to him and they doubt him. And he knows that Nier has planted these seeds of doubt, kind of like Elle had. And we'll talk about that. And then Misa, she's barely hanging on. We'll talk about that. But yeah, Light's destroyed all these human connections that to his family, to his friends, to his comrades in favor of this. And we'll talk about his reasoning behind it. But it's like, Light, it doesn't have to be this way. Like that's why it's very Shakespearean tragedy, is because when I think of Hamlet and Macbeth and a lot of Shakespearean plays, the main protagonist, your colossal protagonist like Hamlet, kind of like Light, has good intentions, but really loses sight and really loses their way and kind of falls down this path. And then there's so many opportunities they have to stop and go back and leave, but they just can't do it. And it's like their hubris gets the better of them, and they just go down this path and they basically destroy the lives of everyone around them. So yeah, it's like, you know, Shinigami, Light's not suffering any misfortune. He's having the time of his life, but his mom, miserable and alone. His sister, traumatized and alone. His dad, dead. I mean, he's probably the happiest one of the bunch, and that's him being dead. Is in that situation. He died happy knowing his son he thinks isn't Kira. It just, yeah, it's wild. Elle, the one person he had a connection with that he could have, you know, solved mysteries with, nope. Just all these people that Light had the potential to have connections with and form bonds and have meaningful relationships with, he has completely foregone for the sake of this culture of fear and being Kira and passing down this judgment and this justice. So it's interesting, but I feel so bad for Daddy Yagami's wife. I feel so bad for Light's mom. And he's like, and the moment where it says, I will declare this right here, Kira is justice. And she just collapses on the table crying. Like, she didn't like Kira to begin with. She didn't want them associated with Kira to start with because she knew something bad was going to happen. And she's widowed. And she's sitting there crying, and her son isn't there to comfort her. Her daughter can't because she's traumatized and is like in a severe mental state. And her son is too busy watching this stupid show to go comfort his mom. But yeah, so we get Kira's kingdom. It's like I said, Alex Jones, like this guy here in the Colonel Sanders suit. It's absolutely ridiculous. And he's like, his name Demigawa is a reference to demagogue. It's like, yep, And he's saying people may try to kill me because of this. Well, no, he's fully convinced that the masses are not, because he's trying to help Kira out. And so they don't want to get on his bad side, right? So they have the new Japanese task force headquarters. Now we don't know where exactly this is. Oh my God! We don't know where this is. Where is this new headquarters? We'll probably find out, but they moved headquarters. Oh my God. Because Daddy Yagami ain't paying the rent no more. They ain't paying the rent no more, so why'd they move? They didn't have to move. You know why they moved? Because Light's a scrub, and his dad's not paying the rent on that apartment anymore because he's dead, so they moved to somewhere else that the Japanese police force is probably paying for because Light's a freaking scrub. I just realized that headline being the new Japanese task force. There was no reason for them to move. That was Light's apartment, but his dad was paying for it. That's great. That's amazing. And so, but this is the scary part, right? They say Kira's Kingdom. What a horrible title to spread Kira's word around the world. Yeah, it's pretty sleazy. It's the end of the world. And it's funny, they say persecuting Kira is an unforgivable act and should be considered a crime. And so Aizawa says we should really kill this guy. So this is put on here. Ida. So we have our players left. Like we have those three, Giovanni, Rester, and the girl, which I'll get her name in a minute. And then over here, we have Ide, and we have Aizawa, and we have Matsuda that are left. Curious. Aizawa, this is kind of a point of contention already. He does not like Demigawa. The scary thing is, he says we should kill this guy, and it's like, woof. Because that's kind of like, that's the culture that Kira has created. This idea of let's just kill it, the idea that just saying let's kill this guy, they have the means to do so. It kind of brings it to reality, and it's like, oh, that suddenly got really real. They could kill him if they wanted to. They won't, obviously, but just the talk of it, right? That desensitization is kind of just, it's there, and it's very strange. Of course, again, Light is the only man I think I've ever seen be able to pull off a black turtleneck. Not possible. Not human. They should have known he was Kira from the start. Nobody can pull off a black turtleneck like that. They're like, you must be God of the New World. Clearly. Because no human can do that. And so they're like, if you see someone trying to find Kira, whether that person is a police officer, and then Matsuda's like, what about the press conference? And so they change it to the president. I do like that they can all see Ryuk. And so Ryuk's like, oh, my apple. And and Matsuda's like, oh, it was an announcement to the world. Matsuda is a sheep. He is. I like Matsuda's character a lot, but he is a sheepish person. He is easily manipulated, and he knows that he's weak. He says that he's weak. But he questions if Kira is evil or not. He's exactly the type of person that Light wants. Light's like, yes, you blind masses. Of course believe that I am justice. Of course. And Matsuda's exactly that. Aizawa doesn't quite, he doesn't buy into it. And Ide's very quiet right now. I will say, I do like Matsuda swiping away the apple and eating it. That's absolutely hilarious. And Ryuk's like, So the President of the United States says that he is going to bow basically to Kira. And of course, Light's like, oh, am I going to get exactly what I want? And the answer is yes. He says, acknowledge Kira and will do nothing to stand in his way. What a sheepish man. We've not had any presidents like that. Ever, right? Yeah, ever. We've never had any presidents like that at all. Not hitting it on the nose at all. But yeah. And of course, Light goes, damn it, this is insane. And then inside, he's smiling. He's such a freaking actor, right? Because Light, he's getting his way. He is ecstatic. He's ecstatic that he can manipulate the U.S. now. Because that was his problem back in episode 28. He's like, I can't assert my authority in the U.S. as Kira because they don't believe that I'm justice, so I can't do that. But now that they've admitted it, Light is like, I've got another Matsuda. I can just worm and do whatever I want with. Oh my gosh, it's just like, what are we doing? But yeah, so in any case, yeah, him just smiling like the damn cat that ate the canary. He's like, I did it. The United States has bowed down to Kira. And this is so, God, it's so weird. Because Light, on the one hand, he wants people to bow to him as the server of justice. He wants people to bow to him, that he is their God. That he just literally said it. And so Aizawa and Ide are like, what the hell? They're like, is he afraid of Kira? Yes. And so then they're like, who decided it? What is the reason behind this? And the reason behind it is that he's a coward, right? And he says, Justice, I didn't say that. But war no longer exists because of Kira. He's like, criminal organizations are in a state of ruin, not only in the U.S., but around the world. There's no mistake. Whoever defies Kira will be killed directly. So that's the thing. That is the thing. It's this culture of fear. It's not, as the president there says, it's not justice, but it is a fear of Kira. So Light, he claims that it is well-intentioned and justice. And justice to the people. Well, you know, in dictatorships, if you just listen to what this one person says, and let me deal out the justice in this situation, then you guys will all be happy. Won't you be happy if I just do things for you and everybody's just afraid of me because I could kill you? Sounds like a dictatorship. Bit. And so, yeah, he's like, this is not justice. No. He's like, nobody does anything bad right now because we're all afraid we're going to die. So it's not really the fact that people's mindsets have changed. They haven't. He's like, people are just scared. So that's the thing. I'm wondering if Nier is going to try to point out, like, who he is to, like, because that's the thing. They don't know who Kira is. He seems like a larger than life figure because you can't give substance to him. Kira right now is an entity and there's no form or anything. So nobody has anything to compare it to. So it just, because it's the unknown factor, there's fear associated with it. And I want to say that maybe Nier and Mello will try to out Light as Kira to give him a figure, right? To be like, no, it's just a person. Because a person, you don't just fear a person like you would like a god, right? So, yeah. And so Nier's just sitting there like, are you serious? We know that Kira does not stand for justice, but as a country will not take actions to catch him because they're afraid. And I love that Nier's just like, he's like, really? Really? And they're like, well, you just acknowledged Kira. Explain. And he doesn't explain. He just kind of like, they're like, you call yourself the leader of a country. Yeah, no, he just bowed down before him. And Aizawa's like, I don't believe it. This is the U.S. we're talking about. This is the U.S. we're talking about. And that was the president's statement. Yeah, you know. And so then Matsuda's like, I'd like to ask a serious question. And everybody's like, and then Ida's like, you're saying you're not always serious? And so Matsuda says, in the depths of your heart, do you think Kira is evil? And so there is something to Matsuda's words here. Because the funny thing about it is, even though Matsuda's weak and he's kind of a sheep, I wonder if in Matsuda's heart, if he connects to Kira because of his relationship with Misa and Light. Because so far in this series, we have seen Matsuda with both of them the most, right? There's that, and there is a form of understanding, right? When you're around somebody for a long time, you understand them more. So even, I mean, we've preached in other animes, right, about the idea of knowing the enemy and understanding the enemy. And if you spend a lot of time with them, you realize that they're just people too, and that there maybe is more to you all that's similar than meets the eye. So there is something to what Matsuda is saying, but like, are they really evil? Because Misa's not evil. Light does not think he is evil. And Aizawa and Ide are like, what are you talking about? And he says, I don't think he's completely evil. And that is a good point. Light is not completely evil. Misa is not completely evil. There are parts of them that come from a place of wanting to do good for people. There is. But the way that they go about it and how extreme Light gets, and there are other aspects of Light that I'm like, that are not good, but he says they're not completely evil. And Matsuda's very genuine there. Like, he's pouring his heart out. And Mogi's there, too. I forgot about Mogi. I'll put Mogi over here. Forgot about Mogi. Got one more person on the task force team. So, yeah, they're all just kind of look at him like, well, you know. And then, so Aizawa says, do you believe that Kira is justice? And he says, I don't know. And they're all like, we've chased after him for over 6 years, and you're still questioning this? But I think that Kira is fighting evil. And of course, Light's over here in his black turtleneck, not conspicuous at all, not suspicious, right? And so he says that Matsuda believes that Kira is fighting evil. All right. Says that. And he says the world's become a good place for the people who live honestly. But again, that's so subjective. Like, honestly, by whose standards, right? People who live honestly, it's like, no, it's not necessarily the people who are living honestly. It's that they're just afraid, right? And Aizawa kind of calls that out. He says, you're wrong, Matsuda. He says they're afraid of the carnage. That's not true peace. Aizawa's like, no, he doesn't like it. And he thinks that it is just a culture of fear. He's like, living in fear is not peace. He's like, that's the opposite of it. He's like, no. And Matsuda's like, I know that. He's like, I get it. He's like, but I understand the feelings of those who call Kira a savior. He knows Misa. He knows her, he knows her feelings about this situation. He's followed her around long enough. So it makes it complicated, right? Matsuda understands. He understands why people follow Kira. He gets it. So we can't, even though Matsuda admits he's weak, you can't really fault him for trying to understand. He's like, I've always been a weak person. And he's like, but I'm a detective and I can't accept Kira. I understand that and I want to catch him as part of my job. I'm probably messed up for not being able to completely denounce him. And then Light, of course, is like, Light speaks from the window. Like, there's been a lot of, ever since episode 25, there has been a lot of moments where Light looks at the reflection of himself. He's looked at mirrors at himself, probably just be like, I'm still me through it all. And it's like, are you? Has it ever been you? And he's like, you've done nothing wrong. And Aizawa is suspicious, right? He is suspicious of Light. Aizawa's not dumb. And he's not easily swayed. And he's like, what are you talking about, Light? What's going on? Why are we bringing this up now? And Ryuk's over here, as Light says, Kira probably knows that what he's doing is evil. And Ryuk's laughing. He's like, So Light says that Kira knows he's doing evil, but he'll change the world even if he becomes a martyr. But he'll become a martyr to save the world. Well, usually martyrs aren't doing evil or believe there's a little bit of weird contradiction there, because Light is trying not to out himself. He's also trying to make Kira look good. He's trying not to make himself seem like he's following Kira, but he also doesn't want to completely denounce Kira because he wants to eventually sway them over to Kira. So he's like, well, Kira probably is aware that what he's doing is evil, but he's trying to become a martyr and save the world and change it. And it's like, but martyrs don't usually believe they're doing evil. That's the kicker. Usually a martyr believes they're doing something good, which is what Light believes, but he has to tweak the wording just a little bit so he doesn't seem suspicious to Aizawa and the others. But then it doesn't make sense, right? So Light is treading a very thin line. And he says, this is the form of justice that Kira's chosen. That's probably what Kira thinks. I mean, I didn't write. It's like he's like OJ handing the book, being like, this is how I could have done it. You know, he's exactly like that. But he's like, well, that's his belief. And Light's smart, and they know that. But again, he's treading a very, very, very thin line, right? And so he's like, it's not our business to debate whether Kira is good or evil, just to catch him. And that's the mentality that's let him like lead them on for the last 6 years. He's like, we don't need to have a political debate. Let's just do our job, right? Except he's making it to where they can't do their job. If Kira's caught, he's evil. If he rules the world, he's justice. That is the line. So it's like, yeah, it's like if he's condemned, he's evil. And if he rules, he's justice. It's a power play, right? It's all about who has the power. If Kira is in control and has the power, then he's justice. But if he loses it, then he's evil. It's very Shakespearean. It is. The question of it, though, is if something condemned is evil, then was it really good to start? It makes such an odd, weird conversation, right? And I think that Light, when he started out in the series, he wanted to he wanted to punish criminals who had done crimes and do it for the sake of the people, because he thought that they were not. When we started out this journey, Light was like, well, these criminals aren't getting proper. Light wanted to embody the death penalty. Is basically what this is. Light wanted to embody the death penalty and be like, well, these guys shouldn't be rotting in jail. They need to be punished. They need to get their just reserves. Jail's not good enough for them. Or these people that get out of the prison system or the criminal justice system, they need to be punished. They're slipping through the cracks. And so he was like, I need to be like this embodiment of the death penalty for them. And it's just kind of warped and evolved from there. So it went from being a place of, I'm going to serve justice and punish these people who've committed these horrible crimes and aren't getting their just desserts, to him being like, I kind of also want to be the god of this world. He's like, I kind of want to enact justice, but I also want y'all to worship me kind of as a god. It's not very hard, right? So it's kind of changed from what Light originally sought out to do. And that's kind of interesting. And they all just kind of stare at him. And I love the distinction that we have the four of them on one side of the room and Light on the other. Again, Light isolating himself because he's got a god complex. There can be only one. And he says, but the world is rapidly going over to Kira's side. And he says, soon Kira will be justice. And the scary thing is that it's starting. Light still believes that he's in control. And there's a weird delicate scale right now where like Demigawa and them, Light believes he has them in his pocket. He believes he can control things. He believes that Kira's under control and he will be the one to take charge and command how people think of Kira. But I'm like, this could easily get out of control. Like, Japan's one thing. Japan is something Light is familiar with. It's their government. Everything about Japan is something Light is familiar with, and Light's been able to easily manipulate. But like we saw back in episode 28 and 27, once you get outside of that, the world's huge, and one human can't be the god of it. And so Light, I could easily see Kira and everything about it getting out of control. And other people starting to claim that they're Kira, things start to happen in the name of Kira, and I could see it spiraling. And right now, Light is somewhat in control of this delicate balance, but what happens when the scales tip? Because that is the thing, right? That's the thing. This whole time, things have conveniently worked out for Light where the death notes have not strayed far from him. He conveniently gave Sido that death note back and was like, here you go, now take it away. We don't have to worry about that. How do we know Sido ain't gonna drop it in the real world and give it to a human? How do we know that? We don't. Sido, he could be like, oh, I guess let's do what Ryuk did. I'll see what happens. And then it's out of Light's control. then it's completely out of Light's control. Because right now, the death notes that we have on the table are under Light's thumb. He knows Ryuk's not going to use his death note and go against Light. He knows he's got that under control. He has Misa's death note and is just giving her paper when she needs it. He has her under control. And he knows that the police are not going to use the death note that he is helping to watch over. So Light believes that nobody is going to bother him. No one is going to be in his way. But I'm like, all it will take is another Shinigami to decide to pull a Ryuk and be like, here, have my death note. See what happens. And then it's not in his control anymore. So what do we do then? So then what if their justice is different than Light's justice? What will Light share the mantle with someone trying to enact justice as well? Or does Light want to be in charge of everything and be a control freak? It's such a delicate balance. And this episode asks some really, really good questions that I'm like, yeah, we need to ask these questions. So they're like, what's going to happen to us? And he's like, we'll be dissolved because of that chicken of a president. And then I like that Nier is respectful of chickens. He says, no, he's not even a chicken. He's less than a maggot. And he pops the head off the police, showing that the police is just disbanded as headless, spineless. And then we see the eyes, the eye of the skeleton there. Very much like a Shinigami eyes. And they're like, there's no way that accepting Kira can be good. Interesting. So yeah, then we have this woman. She, at first I thought it was Misa. At first I was like, oh, we're getting some Misa fan service. Okay. But no, it's not. It's the woman for the SPK. I want to make note that Mello is at least enough of a gentleman to wait until she's out of the shower. I will give Mello this. I will give Mello this. He was a gentleman. He was gentleman enough to wait till she was out of the shower. He didn't barge in on her because she would have been unaware. He could have. No. She just goes out there and she's like, what the heck's going on? And she senses that it's him. And, I mean, he has a gun on her. Granted. But she's like, oh, hey, you're alive. Imagine that. He's got a sweet badass scar now. He's got like a Two-Face scar. I love he has the chocolate bar. I love he has a gun in one hand threatening her. And then the other hand is like take off the chocolate bar. Still eating it like a monster. Which again, I think points to the fact that Mello says that he's not afraid to take lives. And I don't think he is. But he's not a maniac. He has enough self-control to know when to be serious and not. So he's like, yeah, I could shoot you, but I'm also kind of like not too serious. Like if you could take me to Nier, that'd be great, but I'm not really going to shoot you unless you do something stupid. Mello has enough wits about him to not do anything that dangerous, right? And so then Nier sees Mello taking her over there, right? I don't think she's the one with the SPK though. Or the one in the OP, I mean. She is with the SPK, but I don't think she's the one in the OP that has the suit on. I don't think that's her. And then meanwhile, Nier's just sitting there with the train tracks. I think that Nier, because he's all crouched down like L was, much like L used sweets and a certain stance to be in maximum deduction mode, I think that he uses the toys to help him focus. Right? Just like Mello uses the candy. Mello uses the sweets like L did to help him focus. And Nier uses the toys. Also, make note that Mello has some pretty sweet boots. Pretty sweet boots. And so, yeah, and he's just got the tracks around, the 2 tracks. And he's like, oh, welcome, Mello. And so they ask him to put down his gun. And Mello ain't having it. And so it's amazing. He's like, everybody... I want to make note, too. It was pretty easy for him to get in with her. So, yeah, no wonder Light kind of makes fun of Nier later for it. But, I mean, what can we do? It's meaningless for us to shed blood here. Yeah. And so I like that Nier is like, no, I'm not gonna... Not about it. I don't really want to shed blood. And Nier's like, don't do it. He says, our goal is to catch Kira. Right now, killing Mello will not benefit us. So, yeah... Nier is like, why would I get rid of something that could be valuable to me? No. And so then they stand down, right? And I like her eyes. The girl's eyes are like bright yellow. They're beautiful. They're like a crazy yellow color. I'm like, are you wearing contacts? And so he says, have things gone as you've planned, Nier? You've heard from Lydner. Okay, Lydner is the other girl. Okay, she has like yellow golden eyes though. It's kind of crazy. But her name is Lydner. Okay. Interesting. And he's like, you've heard from her, haven't you, about the second L? And he's like, I figured out who Kira is because of everything you've done. And Mello gets pretty mad at that because Mello does not. He does not want to be viewed as a tool. No. Mello's like, excuse me, because of everything I've done, you're going to take credit for it and think that I've helped you? He's like, no. And him pointing the gun at him, being like, Near. I'm not a tool for you to use to solve the puzzle. To solve the puzzle. Not his puzzle. Not Mello's puzzle. The puzzle. He's like, I'm not a tool. He's like, I'm a player every much as you are. And Near is just like, he's like, shoot me if you want. Go ahead. And it's clear that Mel's like just aggravated, right? But, and I like her eyes get, she's like, if you shoot Near, we'll have no choice to shoot you. And then what will that do? He's like, what'll happen if you both die? Only Kira will be happy. Oh yeah, this Lydner girl, she knows what's up. She's like, no, she's like, if both of you die, Kira's won. You guys are the only shots at getting rid of Kira. So you need to work together. I feel like Lydner wanted them to work together, but Mello is too proud. He won't do it. Which I'm going to talk about that. I think that's not a bad thing. And I love that Mello's just kind of like, you're right. I don't want to admit it, but you're right. You know, I feel like that's the case with him. And he says, fine, that's true. Near, I just came to get the photograph that you have of me. Which, this was like, in hindsight, this is amazing because Near just gave up the one thing that Light needed. The one thing that Light needed was a photograph of Mello. He needed it to prove who he was, to see him so he could write down his name. Because he knows the name, he just needs to know a face. And he's not seen his face. So all he needed to do, when they came to get it, it's like, this is like the biggest fate coincidence ever, that Mello gave up his pride for a moment to go get the photo. And I think that could have saved his life. Because if these guys get taken by the authorities, or if Near dies in the next episode, then Mello at least has his photo and Mello will live. That's this crazy thing, is that Mello's going to live through all of this if Near dies. That's the crazy part, because he got the photograph. He's like, now the question is, are there no copies? That's the question, because Near is saying, Near told Light that he didn't have a photograph. Oh, but this also saved Near too, potentially. Because now there's proof that he didn't have a photograph. So Near wasn't lying to Light. Okay. All right. If they scour it and they don't find a photograph, then they think that Near was telling the truth when she was lying. So yeah, that's the thing. Is Near telling the truth? Is he lying? I think he's telling the truth that he doesn't have any copies, because he wouldn't want something like that getting out. I've already dealt with everyone who knows your face at Whammy House and elsewhere. Now that line there, I was like, oh, so the question is, did Near kill Roger? Did Near kill Roger and those at Whammy House? That's terrifying. And Near's not attached to anybody. So if Near was like, if this helps us solve the puzzle, I'll do it. He very well could have. He very well could have killed them all and said, nope. And so he hands Mello the thing. I can't say I'm 100% certain, but it's safe to say you won't be killed by the notebook. As long as he has that photo. And the back of the card says, Dear Mello. So, and his eyes narrow at that. So I'm like, is that L's handwriting? Did L give him the photo? Ooh. That's the question, right? I think that Mello has an attachment for L, and he's like, is that all? Is that all you came for? And Near just looks so dark in that, so dark and serious in that pose. Like, is this all you came for? Was just the photo? Is that all you want? And so I like that Mello's like, yeah, Near. And then we have the shot of both of them and the mosaic and the bells are ringing. The bells, because they both realize that they've been very close to death. That Kira is onto them. And that Kira is right outside of their grasp, but also has the hands ready for the throat, much like Elle was, right? They're both relating to this moment that Elle was struggling through. And the thing is, it's kind of a double-edged sword. Because on the one hand, I want them to work together because I want Light caught. But I want them to work together, but they just can't. And so as much as I want them to work together because I think they would be unstoppable if they did, on the other hand, I think it's good that they're apart because the two of them, I love that we see their eyes looking at each other and you have the fire and ice, right? And you see the mosaic with Elle, and you have him crouched down there as well as Mello standing up. I think it's better that they don't work together. One, because I think it makes it harder for Light because they're not working together, so they're not connected. And two, they're not in the same place at the same time, and they're not connected. So like Mello going off and doing his own thing, Nier doesn't really know about. So Light can't torture Nier for information that he doesn't have. And two, it just makes things much more complicated. And they don't have an attachment with one another, right? I think that's important too. But God, that mosaic shot. And he's like, I have no intention of working with you. And he's like, I know. But it'll upset me to receive this picture without giving anything in return. I just love that shot of his hair and everything blowing in the breeze, right? Being like, I don't want to work with you. We agree to disagree, but you gave me my picture back and potentially saved my life. So now I'm going to give you some information. And we'll go from there. And Nier's like, okay. And he said, the killer's notebook, it's a Shinigami's notebook. Whoever touches it is able to see it. And Nier's just his eyesight like, and so this is the funny thing, is that Nier's reaction, because Giovanni and Rester, they're both like, what? Who would believe that? That's nonsense. Hokum. He believes it. He says, what good would it be for him to lie? So unlike Elle, who had like the crazy reaction, Nier accepts it. Very much like a Light situation where he's just like, nope, okay. He's like, that lie is so outlandish that it has to be the truth. So Shinigami really exist. Like he just, like that, accepts it. No question asked, no freak out, no like illogical thing. He's like, no, logically that makes sense. Why would Mello lie to me? They must exist. Very emotionless, very detached. And then Mello's like, the notebook I had was the one that belonged to someone other than a Shinigami. And there were fake rules written within it. So yeah, he told him about the fake rules. And he's like, that's all I can tell you. Because he knows he's going to figure it out, right? He knows that Nier's going to figure it out. And I love that you have Nier in the white shirt and Mello has, again, the big poofy plume, but it's black. Like you have the black and white dynamic between the two of them. Mm-hmm. And then the two of them, they can't work together. I love the dynamic between the two of them, honestly. I love it because it's like, it makes things so much... We've already had Light versus Elle, right? And if Mello and Nier were to work together, it would probably be something similar to that. And I like that instead we have this kind of like weird, distant antagonism between them, but they both have the same goal. It's fun. I like it. And then Nier... He says, and then Mello says Nier and Mello. And I love that he reaches for the candy bar and bites the candy bar and he messes with the hair. Like they both do a very Elle thing, right? Where they just fidget. Like Elle's thing was scrubbing his feet together and eating the sweets. And here it's the hair and the candy bar. And he says, which of us is going to get Kira first? And he's like, the race is on. Oh my gosh. It's almost like they're their own Sherlock and Moriarty and Light's just the goal. It's so baffling. Mm-hmm. I love it though. A lot of people don't like Mello and Nier because they took the place of Elle. And there will never be another as Elle and nobody can take the place of Elle. Elle is iconic and my favorite character in the series. But I love Mello and Nier a lot because they are not Elle. They are quite different. And they pose a very unique threat to Light. So I love this final hour antagonist. They said, our destination is the same. I'll be waiting for you. And so there's a kind of almost like ominous foreshadowing, being like, yeah, we're both going to hell together. We're both going down in a blaze of glory together. When I see you in hell, I'll meet you there. And he's like, sure, our destination's the same. It's really cool. I like it. I love that line. We're going to meet. And in the end, they meet up at the same place. So in the OP, you have Light confronting Nier, coming behind Nier to try to get him. But Mello is up from behind. So I'm like, there's a question of, will Mello come up and try to attack Light from behind while he's focused on Nier? That could be in the next episode. So Light could have us focus solely on Nier, and not realize Mello's about to strike from behind him. I don't know. We don't know. And so then Mello leaves and they let him go. So Mello's out there in the world. He is out there and we don't know anything more about him. So Mello, he escapes. He escapes and is free. And we have no clue where he is. Who knows? Near, far, wherever you are. And then so Nier, meanwhile, we have our 2 rules of the Death Note, which have been told to us before. So I'm curious why we had to reiterate those. It says, if a Death Note owner accidentally misspells a name 4 times, the person will be free from being killed. However, if they intentionally misspell the name 4 times, the Death Note owner will die. Okay. So yeah, so if somebody accidentally misspells a name 4 times, the person will be free from being killed. But if they intentionally misspell it, then the owner will die. Okay. So basically the person whose name is misspelled will be free, but the owner will die in exchange. And the person whose name was misspelled 4 times on purpose will not be free of death by a Death Note. Okay. Interesting. So it's kind of a double whammy. If someone misspells it intentionally 4 times, then that person will die as well as the handler who had the Death Note. Curious. That'll probably never come up in the series. Why would we mention it, right? Interesting. So then we have the tarot cards, which the tarot cards have crosses on them. Fitting. And so we have Nier surrounded by them. He says a fake rule. And he's like, judging from the previous events, there's no doubt that the note, and he has all the rules there. As for burning or tearing up the notebook still exists. There's no way to test it. In that case, and he flips over the card that says death. I do like that shot of him in this galaxy behind him. The fake rule is the person if he doesn't write the name within 13 days. And so then he says, okay. And he says, Giovanni, get me L. Nier is pretty, I'm like, okay, Nier's pretty confident, right? And he gets confident and a little bit cocky, I think. A wee bit, because he underestimates Light a little bit, because Light is best to manage when he's caught off guard. But once Light gets any semblance of control, he runs with it and he does things to the extreme, like getting the president to surround them and getting Demagawa to go after them. Like, Light is not afraid to do any of that stuff as long as he's in control of the situation. So Nier gets a little cocky here, I think, but Nier does something that L does not, where he just he's bold. He goes all in, right? He does do something like L. And so he's like, yes. He's like, we've caught Mello. And everybody's like, oh. And he says, but he escaped. I actually love that part, because you could just tell them being like, are you serious? And Light's like, bullshit, you let him go. He's like, we were able to interrogate him a little before he got out. And then Light's like, you're full of shit. He didn't escape. You let him escape after you interrogated him. And he's like, no, he escaped. He's like, no, he really did escape. He did. And he's like, by the way, Mello said there's a Shinigami attached to the notebook. And then Ryuk's like, So he knows. Have you been able to confirm such an entity? And he says, yes, Shinigami do exist. And I love that Ryuk comes up to him like, what are you going to tell him? What are you going to tell him, Light? And he's like, to keep it a secret because I didn't think you'd believe me. Yeah, so Nier's calling Light out, being like, I know you're keeping stuff from me. So let's figure out what you're keeping from me. Let's figure out how much we know. And he's like, I'd like to talk to the Shinigami about some things. And Ryuk's like, I don't want to talk. Ryuk's like, I really don't want to get involved. Thanks, but I got my apples. I'm good. If you guys want to just go off and do your own thing, that's fine, but not me. And he says, the thing that bothers me the most is the fact that there's a fake rule written amongst the rules in the notebook. So he just comes out and says it. And that's the thing, is that L was thinking that one of the rules seemed like it could be an alibi. And he was trying to prove that it was fake, right? 6 years ago. And Light shut that down real quick by having him killed. Now, Near is posing the same thing, being like, well, there's a fake rule in there. I've been told that by Mello. There's a fake. And he's like, tell me your thoughts. I love this part. He's like, if there's a fake rule, which do you think it is? He's very much baiting him, much like L did, right? He was like, come on. He's like, you're smart. Say which one you think it is. And so he says, well, by elimination, it would have to be the one about the 13 days. Or whether they use it or die. And Near is like, he's just like, I thought you'd say that. I think so too. And so he's like, what do I do? And I love that Light's like, Shinigami, is there a fake rule amongst the rules written within the notebook? No, there aren't any. Here's the thing. Why Light admitted that? I think Light we don't get to hear an interior monologue with him in that moment, right? We don't get to hear an interior monologue, which is so curious. It's a very odd move for Light to ask Ryuk. He's trying to get himself, Light is trying to prove to the men in the room that there's no fake rule because he needs them on his side trusting him. And he feels like if he confirms it with Ryuk, then it'll tell Near the answer that kind of moots that point. But at no point did Light say that the Shinigami was with them. So he says there aren't any. And at that moment, Near's face is like, oh, so there's a Shinigami there. And so you see, like, his face, the smile that he gets on his face is very creepy. It is not an L smile. L's smile was kind of like, oh, look at that. But Near's is very scary. And he says, yes. He's like, I see. He's like, I pretty much get the picture. Like Near knows now. He knows that Light is Kira. He's like, I know you are. He's like, you're getting the Shinigami to lie. Yeah. He's like, in other words, Kira is there and he's making the Shinigami lie. And he puts over the card that says the devil. Oh, it says the devil. And I'm like, oh, the representation of Light as the devil. Mm-hmm. And Light's like, this guy. And Ryuk's like, he got it right. And Matsuda's like, well, even if the Shinigami's lying, it doesn't mean anything. I'm like, it means very much everything. I'm like, Matsuda, honey, you're trying to like sway them. And he's like, no, it would mean that it was meaningless to detain Light. That we didn't have to do that. He's like, if the rule that a person has to continue writing the names is fake, it makes it meaningless. They spent more than 13 days doing nothing. And Light is like looking over being like, Aizawa's smart and he's figuring it out. He's putting pieces together and Light doesn't like this. And Matsuda's like, but that's wrong. He's like, there's no way that's Light's Kira. We saw, the deputy director confirmed that. He didn't have a notebook and passed away. Which is true. Matsuda wants, like, Chief Yagami to believe that Light's not Kira, but Aizawa and Ide are like, well, yeah. And Light's like, this is not good. This is all Near being cocky and going in there was not only to call Light out and to make the second L know that he knows that something's up, but to sow these seeds of discontent. And that gets proven more when he tells, he's like, well, then how about we test it this way? He's like, I'll write Mello's name in the notebook. And they're like, oh, when Mello dies, and if I die 13 later, then Kira wins. He's like, isn't that the best case scenario? He's like, both of us will die and it'll be over. And he's like, I don't mind. He's calling Light out because he knows that Kira knows it's a fake rule. It's a win-win situation for Near, right? Because it will prove he's right. It'll prove he's right. And, I mean, he knows it's a fake rule. So he's like, he has nothing to lose, right? At this point, he's like, this is the way to solve the puzzle. And he's willing to do it. The thing of it is, L wanted to get all of his ducks in a row and plan things out strategically before, because that's kind of what L wanted to do. Back in episode 24, L was like, okay, I'll test out the theory. We'll have someone write a criminal's name in the book. And if the criminal dies, then we'll know. But L wasn't putting his life on the line because he wasn't 100% certain, right? And so Near doesn't care. Near's like, nah, I'm going to do it. I'm certain. is it's just a matter of winning or losing. Yeah, that's the thing. Nier doesn't care about lives. This isn't about justice. This is about catching Kira. So he's like, even if the 13 rule benefits the Kira investigation, he says there shouldn't be any drawbacks. I'll put my life on the line. And Lion is just glaring at him. He's like, if I reject this offer on my own, it will give a bad impression. He's like, it'll make me look suspicious. Why would I say no? It doesn't hurt them either way, so why would it benefit him to say no? And he says, wait a moment, we need to think about that suggestion. And he's like, Lion has the sweat dripping from his forehead. And he says, give me your honest opinion. It's easy to say that we should honor human life and that we shouldn't do that, but I was the one who was confined. So it'd be strange for me to be saying that. It's like, I was the one that this rule is going to affect. So what do we do? And Matsuda says this is awkward. I think that Nier should do it if he wants. I want to see the deputy director avenged. So that's curious. Matsuda is for Nier writing the name in the notebook. Because he's like, it's awkward. He's like, but if we kill Mello, it will avenge the deputy director. So I don't see a problem in it. Let's do that. Go for it. Ide says he's against it. He doesn't believe that Kira's among us. So that's good to know. He says no, Kira's not here. Which Ide's interesting later. He's like, no, I don't believe Kira's here. I don't see the reason to do it. No. And then he says we shouldn't kill anyone with the notebook. That's kind of the other thing too. He says not to kill with the notebook. He's against the entire concept. He's like, no, I don't believe we should be. He's very much against Kira, but he doesn't think Kira's there, but he doesn't think they should kill with the notebook. So the answer is no. He says they shouldn't use it. They're no better than Kira if they do. But Aizawa says, yes, we should follow deputy director's will. And he says, I'm also against testing the notebook. So Mogi says no to the notebook. No to the death note. Aizawa says yes to Chief's will. Now, I think that Chief's will means that he didn't want them to use the notebook either, because he's like, the chief was against using the notebook and killing people. So he's like, I don't think we should do it. Now, note, Ide is the only one who says Kira's not among them, that he believes it, and Matsuda doesn't believe it. Aizawa and Mogi do not say that. They just say they don't want to use the notebook. They don't say that they don't believe that Light's Kira. And Light's like, okay, fine. He's like, we cannot allow you to test the notebook. And Nier's like, I thought you'd say that. He's like, that makes sense. He's like, and lastly, one more thing. He says, to the members of the Japanese task force, was there ever a time when Second L was thought to be Kira? This was the seeds of doubt, because he's like, was there ever a time? And I love that Light's just sitting there like, excuse me? What are you doing? He's like, if you've listened to our conversation and want to help my investigation, so he knows they're there. He's like, you guys, I know you're there listening. Was this guy that's probably Kira ever suspected of being Kira? And, he's just been cleverly leading you on the last 5 to 6 years to not catching Kira? Seems oddly suspicious. But, if you guys have been listening and you want to help with my investigation, he says that if you'd like to do that, call the number I'm going to give you and I'll answer. And then we focus on Aizawa of all people. And he's like, there's no way that Light could be Kira. No, I just don't want to think that. But if the 13-day rule is fake, it's true we can't say he's innocent. They've been falling back on that stupid rule this entire time. And the only reason they haven't tested it because they don't want to use the notebook. But now that it's pointed out to being fake, it's like there's that curiosity, like, do we test it? But if it is, he's like, you can't remove all doubt anymore. And I love that, again, there's that contrast. You have Aizawa in the green and you have Light in the red. You had L in the blue. So you had these contrasting colors, right? Aizawa. And Ryuk's just in there cackling. Ryuk, this entire drama, all of this shenanigans, all of this destruction and death was just because Ryuk was bored. Ryuk's like, man, this is a lot more fun than I thought it was going to be. Oh, and Light. being like, I've got to kill Near! Light's like, no, this is not good. Near is like, he's sowing discontent. He's causing all this trouble. He's like, he's got to go. Light is like, I will not be bested by this child. But now he's given them the number. So now Light is faced with the task of, well, what do I do? Do I kill all 4 of them? Matt Studa seems to believe me, but he's like, what do I do? He's like, they all have my number. Who's going to cave first? And so then we have the president, and the whole thing where the president is, he's like, I'm grateful you've sympathized with me, right? And so he asks him, he says, but that isn't enough. He says, the SPK is trying to catch me. And so I want you to stop them immediately and disband them. And at the same time, I want you to use the American police, the CIA, and we see the bird in the cage. A lot of you have pointed out that the bird in the cage represents Misa being in a cage. Very much. I want you to use all of the government forces and all of our other intelligence agencies to find out where the SPK members are hiding. And at this point, I do want to point out that we don't see Misa's face, but we see her watching Light. We see her watching Light perform and do all of this. And he says, let me know immediately and I'll tell you how to contact me. Like, she's seeing how Light is throughout all of this, which is rather curious. It's your choice whether or not you live a long life. So he threatens him. He's like, well, I'll kill you if you don't do what I say. So, there's that. Which is kind of like a cheat code, right? It's such a cheat. It's like Near and Mello. I guess I sympathize more with Near and Mello because they don't have supernatural means of getting what they want. They're literally using the resources they have and their intelligence to do things. Kind of the same way with Elle. Neither of them had like supernatural cheat codes. Light is literally like, you'll do what I say or I'll kill you. Well, then, if they value their life, what choice have you given them? So it almost feels cheap, right? But that's the game. He's like, don't forget that. And he's like, fine. Because he's spineless. And even him, he's just like, this ain't a way to live, right? And so we have Mr. Demagawa, please wait. Why are you going suddenly to New York? I'm going to crush an organization that's defying Kira. And Light has set him up with it, right? He's like, this is an order from Kira. I had a call from the president. I don't even know at this point, I want to make note. I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. Is, I think, so on the nose. And I don't even write it down, but he says, I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. He says, I don't care about anything. I'll get 100%, no, 120% viewer ratings. Yeah, it's all just for the veneer, just the outside. This isn't for justice. At this point, what Light is doing is not for justice. Like that line, I don't know what I'm saying anymore. I don't care. It's almost like a representation of Light has completely lost his way from being a martyr for the justice of good. No, Light just knows that Near's close to catching him. So he's like, I just want to get rid of this kid. That's all. All we know, we don't know that Near's killed all the people at the Whammy house. We haven't confirmed that. So for all we know, Near's not committed any crimes. Now, Mello did kidnap Seiyu. Mello was kidnapped Seiyu, fired a missile, killed a guy in a helicopter. Mello's committed some crimes. He has. But Near? Has Near? No, but he's just defied Light, and that's all Light needs. He says, the age of Kira has come. And that's kind of the big point, is like the age of Kira, where you don't know what you're saying, you don't care, it's just blind. Like just blind following of this supposed god. Mm-hmm. And then we see them, whoever decorated the new task force, I mean, it's fine, it matches, but I think Light had better decorating skills. The last L was suspicious of Light, but I'll just be killed if he really is Kira. And I suggest that we should investigate him again. Yeah, Aizawa's like, he's like, I know Elle was suspicious of him, but I can't just say we're going to investigate Light. At that point, I'm like, Aizawa, you think that Light's Kira. You do, because you're thinking what's going to happen. And you know what the funny thing is? I think that Aizawa is, even though he didn't say it at the time, even though way back in the episode he was like, oh, I hate you, Elle, and I don't like you, I think at the end of the day, Aizawa does sympathize and empathize a little bit with Elle because Elle saved him. He kept him from going blindly when Okita died. He kept him from going to the hotel where Misa would have killed him. And I think that in that moment, Aizawa knows that he was acting rashly and L literally saved his life. It's like, oof. So I think there's that. Yeah. He's like, what should we do? He's like, the 13-day rule. He's like, and then that's when Ide interrupts him and says, I've known you for a long time and I know what you're thinking. Ide's like, I can read you like a book, friend. You know what? It's funny. We talk about like shipping and BL stuff. Like L and Light are such a BL couple. It's not even funny. But honestly, like Ide and Aizawa are ultimate bromance. They're bros. I don't see the shipping between the two of them. I see a legit bromance. So there is a difference. But yeah, he's like, I know what you're thinking. You should do what you think is right. I've never trusted L to begin with. I'm doing what I'm doing now because I want to work with you rather than Light. Oh, so yeah, Ide's like, I didn't trust L back then. I'm only doing what I'm doing because I trust you, Aizawa, and I know you, and you do what you think is right, and so I'm following you. He's like, so he's doubtful of Light as well. He's not here to work with Light. He's here to work with Aizawa. He's like, Ide. And then, of course, he's like, I'll contact Nier without letting Light know. And Light's just standing there outside the door. Oh, my God, in the shadows. All right. I'll make sure that no one knows what you're doing. Oh, and Light's like just there with the red eyes. So, yeah, so now Light has to worry that 2 of the 4 people he's working with are going to work against him. And then what do we do? Because that's just proved to Light that they don't trust him and that they could be a problem. I think he's going to kill Ide and Aizawa. I think he's going to kill him. I think it's going to come down to, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if he killed Mogi just because Mogi's not much of just to cut loose ends. But it's going to be really interesting if he gets down to where he has to kill Matsuda, and Matsuda was the one person that truly believed in him, and he has to kill Matsuda too by process of elimination. That's going to be rather interesting. Will he get to that point or not? I don't know. So yeah. And then he goes in, right? And then, of course, Light has the solitary cup of coffee. Was he bringing coffee he wasn't bringing coffee to Ide or Aizawa. He's bringing it for himself, right? Suspicious. And Aizawa just staring at him. And again, Light's over on the laptops all by himself. Yep. And he's like, Light, I want to believe that you're not Kira. But, he's like, I want to believe you so bad. He's like, but there's something about you. And that's when Matsuda comes in and talks about Demagawa being on the TV. Like flying the helicopter around New York. Along with my comrades, we've finally pinpointed the location and surrounded the hideout of an evil organization that's trying to catch our god, Kira. And everybody's like smashing in the doors like it's a riot, right? Like they're going to drag him out. They're hiding within this building. Like it's just mass chaos. It's a riot. And there's a fire and everything. They're like, behold the power of the people, the power of justice. How is this good? How is this like the justice that Kira, you were saying you wanted to stop people from doing evil things. They're literally dragging people out of a building to be killed, setting things on fire and destroying property. Like it's fear culture. It's not justice. It's, God, it's crazy. And yeah, he's just flying overhead. And Misa. So the part about Misa, she's like, when Nier escapes, I'll write his name in the notebook. Light, I'm going to do my best. So they don't know what Nier looks like, but they're going to write the names of everybody that escapes and kill all of them. And not make any mistakes, right? So Misa, she's like, I will do my best. I'm going to do my best. No, that's not love. It's like Light's just got her under his thumb. And he's like, do this. No mistakes, remember? And so I'm like, if she makes a mistake, I'm going to be interested to see what's going to happen. And he's like, at this rate, we'll really be dragged out. And then that's when L like comes on the screen. And I love that Nier's like, really? And of course, Light is like, what's wrong, Nier? Like, he's like, oh, he's just reveling in it. He's like, what's wrong? Is this a plan by Mello to finish off the SPK? Like, he's hiding his smile. Like, he has, like, his hand over his face on the headset, but he's hiding his grin. Like, he's eating this up. And I love that Nir's like, oh, or is it because the SPK is so poorly structured that even the public was able to discover your location? It's like, no, because Kira discovered it from the... And I love that he just takes a Transformer toy and he's like, he just takes Megatron off and like pops it off. Oh, you and your lies. Yeah, that's the thing. He's like, you and your lies. Oh. And I love that he's like, I win, Nir. Oh my God. And then we have the lightning flash in the red eyes. Do I think that Light is going to win in the next episode? No. I think Nir's going to escape, but the question is how? Is Mello going to get involved? What's going to happen? How is this going to go down? So, yeah. I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but I'm really curious to see how all this plays out. I don't know if I'm going to be able to wait a week. I don't think so. So if I don't have any comments next episode, sorry. But I just don't think I can wait a week. I don't think it's going to happen. So yeah. But I'm very curious to know your thoughts down below. Please, no spoilers. We got 7 episodes left. So I'm very curious to know your thoughts down below. But in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe. Take care. And yeah, I'll be back very soon with episode 31 of Death Note.